I am excited to be here again. I'll go ahead and just kind of walk you through our packaging journey, and then I'm excited to have a discussion at the end moderated by Ahmed. Okay, so I think you can see the slides, right? All right, great. So you can tell from this first slide and from my introduction that this is not a typical entrepreneurial journey. As was mentioned, I was in the Bahamas doing environmental work and continued to run into the issue of single-use plastic on the beach, on the water, on the side of the road. And there, without the infrastructure to make plastic disappear, it was a much more visual problem. So I started doing the things that people are doing now, carrying reusable water bottles, carrying reusable bags. But one place that I couldn't find a solution for the problem was those little plastic bottles in the shower. So every year in the US, 552 million plastic shower shampoo bottles are thrown away. That seemed like a pretty good size problem to try and solve. So I called my sister, and we worked for about 2 years to develop Plaine Products. We chose aluminum because it is infinitely recyclable. Plastic, while it can be recycled once, maybe twice, still was going to end up in a landfill, and that's something that we wanted to avoid. So we went with aluminum, has some of the highest recycling rates in the world, and there is no quality loss when it is recycled. So it can just go around and around and around. I know that this is not about ingredients, but I just needed to say that we didn't want to do an environmental packaging and then put a bunch of chemicals in the bottle. So the products are aloe-based, they're paraben, sulfate, phthalate free, vegan, non-GMO, all the good things. So we have had a great deal of success and support, I think, because of the packaging, but the products also stand up, which is important. I wanted to just briefly go over 4 different models of reuse before I talk about exactly how we do things. There's a variety of reuse models. These are 4 laid out by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the New Plastic Economies report. The main difference with reuse is the value actually placed on the packaging. So instead of seeing packaging as something disposable, something to have the lowest possible cost, in all of these models, it actually has a value. And in fact, the main difference between the models is who owns the packaging, whether the consumer owns it and hangs onto it, or whether the producer retains control and gets it back and takes responsibility for that. So we're just going to walk through these 4 models as they lay them out quickly, and then we'll talk a little bit more about our experience. So the first model is the refill at home. This is when the consumer buys a product in packaging, takes it home, and then refill pouches or some version of that show up, and they actually refill the product at home. So there are a lot of cleaning supply companies, some of the personal care products that are trying this model. It lays out a few of the challenges of attracting consumers when the refill doesn't look as large as the actual thing. But people are using it with great success, especially with cleaning products here in the US. Refill on the go. This is a bulk bin. A lot of these grocery stores are adding it to their aisles. There are actually refill shops popping up around the world. So the consumer, again, owns the package, gets the package, brings it to another location to refill cleaning supplies, shampoo. A lot of different models of this are going on with some success. Return on the go. This is where the company retains the ownership of the package and brings that back, cleans it, reuses it. Loop, who's talking, I believe, tomorrow, is an example of this model. We use some of this model. So the consumer buys it, uses it, and then the company brings it back and refills it. And then return from home. This is very similar to the return to go, except for the business picks it up from the house. Actually, I guess this is a better example of Loop. And the return on the go is actually the user drops it off somewhere. So that's more like bottle deposits, whereas this return from home is what we're using and what Loop is using. So sorry about that. Turn on the go, the user drops it off somewhere, like a bottle deposit scheme. And in parts of the States, you can bring your bottles back and get your money back. And then return from home, somebody actually comes and picks it up from you. So just to address the elephant in the room, as we say, there was some concern at the beginning of the pandemic about the safety of reuse and reusable containers, and there have been no cases thus far via surface contact. So, in many of the conversations, and in fact, there is a letter from 115 health experts from around the world that all agree that the most important thing is actually sterilization of packaging. And that is much safer to do with reusable packaging, metal packaging. It can be sterilized at higher temperatures, safer than plastic. So those fears seem to have been allayed as we've learned more and more about this virus, but I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. So our model, we use a hybrid model. We use a few different elements from the 4 different models from Ellen MacArthur. When you order Plaine Products from our website, which is our main business channel, you get a bottle, you get a pump, and then when you're running low, you order a refill or you subscribe and we send the refill automatically. The pump is switched over to the bottle. Along with that refill bottle comes a return label. You, when you're ready, send the empty bottle back with that free return label. Just leave it out for the post person and they bring it back to us. And then we wash, sterilize, refill the bottle, send it out into the world. So it's actually relatively simple. It's just a different way of thinking about it. As I said, right now, this e-commerce is about 85% of our business, but more and more, we are also working with wholesalers. So in 2 ways, or as retail partners, actually the same model, buying bottles, having pumps on the side, having people come back to purchase refill bottles. And then we pay, again, the wholesalers to hang on to those empty bottles and we bring them back to us to wash, refill, and reuse. We have just this year launched a bulk refill option. So you see the blue bucket. We are working now with many of those refill stores that are popping up around the country where people are willing to refill on the go. So the price point is a little bit lower because they're doing a little bit more work, but they can bring their bottle into the refill shops and refill them on their own. In addition to the bottles, we also do our best to look at reuse and sustainability in many other ways. So as we have grown, we have been able to eliminate packaging fill from our boxes. We have shifted the kind of cardboard that we use so that it can be reused. Right now we're reusing about 60 to 65% of all of our boxes, some of those 3 and 4 times. So we're working with people to make sure they get that cap back on the bottle when they send it back so there's no leaking, which damages about 10 to 15% of the boxes right now. So we're trying to decrease that. But again, as I said, this reuse model pervades the business. We also use paper tape on our boxes, which makes them much easier to recycle. The plastic tape has to be separated and in some cases renders cardboard unable to be recycled. So thinking about that holistic piece and making sure that we have thought through the end life of all of our packaging, not just the bottles. As you see here, these are a bunch of boxes that have come back in that are ready for reuse. Our customers are extremely engaged. Right now, we do not use a deposit scheme. We just allow it to be free. So we provide the return label for people to send it back to us for free. And we have about a 75% return rate without any deposit, without any reward. Our customers are excited to participate. They're excited to be a part of this model. That's part of the incentive for even purchasing, is to know that the producer is taking responsibility of their bottle. And we have found that to be a very successful marketing strategy. So we have really found that public opinion is moving in this direction more and more since we've launched. The media has been covering the plastic issue. More recently, at least in the US, there have been more and more articles about the fact that a lot of recycling isn't happening. When China stopped taking plastic about 2 years ago, I think the awareness started to rise that much of the plastic is not being recycled. And again, as I mentioned earlier, even when it is, it still eventually will end up in a landfill. Plastic in the oceans continues to be of rising concern because plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller bits due to sun and wave action. It's actually breaking up into microparticles, which are nearly impossible to clean up and entering the food chain. So a lot of concerning issues, and we are finding people are coming to us simply because they prefer our packaging, are willing to pay more to lower their plastic footprint on the planet. We see that with notes that we get from consumers. We see that with loyalty that they show us. We have a very high lifetime value for our customers. We have a very low churn rate on our subscriptions. And we relatively do not spend much on advertising. A lot of our growth is organic, is word of mouth, simply because people are excited to find a solution and be a part of this. Also, we see huge potential for growth. Obviously, there is an infinite number of both personal care and cleaning products that are currently in plastic that provide opportunities. And we certainly don't believe that we are the only solution to this plastic problem. Dion from High Bar will be talking tomorrow about shampoo bars. Even within what we do right now, there's tons of room for different types of shampoo, different types of personal care products, meeting different people's needs. So we really feel that this is huge, huge room for growth in this industry. And, I will just say that prior to 1950, 95% of all packaging was returned. So that is not that far off in the distance that it seems completely possible that we could return to a much higher percentage of reusable packaging in this industry. So that is my prepared presentation, but I thought it would hopefully be more interesting for us to have a bit of a conversation. So I'm going to let our moderator take that.